Hello guys. So this is unique. First off, it's been a while. I've been focused on doing the vlog series with the 1990 Flash show, so I haven't really put a lot of focus on Fenn Recommends because, in all honesty, in the last four episodes, those were taken like way before everything. Those were taken like during like early summer, but I had some computer issues and those episodes were delayed, and at that point I was focused on the album reviews, and then that kind of put them later. So consider this kind of a quick catch up on this series here. Today, of course, we'll be talking about the It movie, the first one, because I saw it recently with Corey and my sister, and then we both saw Chapter 2 shortly in theaters. A movie theater reviews episode of that movie will be coming out soon. But I want to talk about Chapter 1 though first, and not do a Lego movie where I talk about Lego Movie 2 before I actually talk about the Lego movie. Um, but yeah, let's see, But yeah, so, and I just want to say quickly, I'm probably going to do more focus on vlog series going forward, so Fenn Recommends might be more kind of offside shoot. But yeah, I'm going to do, I'm going to talk about this. I might do another horror movie for October for Halloween. I might, but I don't know for sure. So kind of consider this possibly the horror movie of the year, the Halloween movie of the year, but maybe another one just to throw in just for shits and giggles. And then I'll probably do some episodes in December when the vlog series for the Flash ends. And going into the new year, I'll do some more, and then I'll probably do another vlog series, actually. But let's talk about the movie It. It was released in 2017. It's rated R. It's about 2 hours and 15 minutes long. And it was released on DVD in 2018. And I will say, I'm actually using my phone for notes now. I'm kind of retiring writing it all on paper just because it's more of a hassle. It's not as quick, and I have terrible handwriting. So the movie stars Bill Skarsgård, who was in Allegiant. The movie Allegiant which is part of the Divergent franchise, and Finn Wolfhard, who was in Stranger Things, the TV show Stranger Things, and then the director of the movie is Andy Muschietti. I hope that's how I pronounce his name, and he also directed the horror movie Mama. Now, on Rotten Tomatoes, the movie has 86% by critics, it's certified fresh, and 84% by audiences. And with the critic count is 359 and the audience count is around 66,000-ish. The critics' consensus on Rotten Tomatoes is that well acted and fiendishly frightening with an emotionally affecting story at its core, it amplifies the horror of Stephen King's classic story without losing touch with its heart. That's a reasonable description of this movie. The movie isn't available to stream, but it's available to rent and buy on Amazon, YouTube, Google Play, iTunes, Fandango, Vudu, Microsoft Store, Redbox, and it's only available to buy on PlayStation Store. It's not available to rent on PlayStation Store. Now, I thought this was a great movie. Now, even though I haven't seen the original It movie with Tim Curry, I have seen a Nostalgia Critic review it, and I have to say, I can't really say which is better because I don't really have the right to say it because I haven't seen the full original, but based on what I've seen and know of the original, I think this is better. At least from the kid across the board, really, even with taking Chapter 2 into consideration. But what I like most about... Alright, let's go over this movie. Alright, let's start with acting. Acting is not the issue in this movie. The acting's flawless. The kids are amazing. Pennywise, Bill Skarsgård, he does a very great Pennywise. It's hard to say he's better than... I mean, Tim Curry has kind of that bravado already, that charisma that he carries with all his performances, that infectious personality. I mean, it's kind of hard to trump that. But what I like about his Pennywise, and I don't think a lot of people get or understand, is that his Pennywise is kind of more... it's a manifestation, kind of. It feels more like, I mean, the original at Pennywise, it's pretty much Tim Curry, pretty much. I mean, he's amazing and all, but it's Tim Curry. It's kind of like Jack Nicholson's Joker. He's amazing Joker, but it's, Jack Nicholson. This one's a bit more different. This one's more transformative, in my opinion. I think it's good. I I don't really have any issue with his Pennywise. I wouldn't call him exactly a funny clown. He kind of is funny, but he's kind of funny not really in the way he talks, but more in his actions. And I think a lot of it's because since his motivation, his desire is children, manipulating and capturing children, it would make sense that he would have like a childlike personality, even though he's anything but childlike. Um, the acting's fantastic. Direction is good. Overall, the vision's good, but I think here comes the biggest, a genuine problem with the film: tone consistency. This film does not have very good tone consistency. Now, this movie does accomplish something. It has a great, great sense of dread. And let me tell you something. I haven't felt a sense of dread in a movie this strong since the first Evil Dead movie, and that's my favorite horror movie ever. So you would think that this movie would have a high standing, but that's not necessarily the case, because what happens is, a lot of times, because it is dealing with children, sometimes they try to offset it with a little bit of humor and whimsicalness. The problem is that the transitions to it is not done well at all. A lot of times, sometimes it is, but a lot of times it isn't. And there's one scene that I'm not going to give away, although I feel like most people at this point probably know what I'm talking about, is a scene concerning the female character in a bathroom. And the transition from that event into the next one in that bathroom is done so out of nowhere and so weirdly done that I'm just like... And the thing is that I'm not usually a stickler on... I mean, if the problems are minor, then I usually don't really pay attention to them first viewing. If I think about it after, I'll notice them. But if in the first viewing, if I notice it, then it's a problem. That's my standard. If I notice it in the first viewing, right in the middle of the movie, it's a problem. And that's a problem. That's a big problem with the movie. Now, I think I will say this: the movie tries very hard to pay well to the source material, but the problem with the movie source material is that I haven't read the book. I know of people who have read the book. I have listened to their thoughts and opinions, and it seems like for people who love the book, they love it, and for people who hate the book, they hate it. And a lot of it is just because, for a lot of different reasons that I won't get into. And one of them doesn't really concern the movie, but one of them that does is the fact that a lot of people don't like Pennywise. Some of them don't think Pennywise is scary. Some people think the fear itself manifesting into the separate scares is scary, but not the clown itself. I don't know. There's plenty of scenes where Pennywise I find genuinely terrifying, like the opening scene with Georgie in this movie. Oh my God, I loved it. It was, to this day after watching, I still remember it so well, and I just enjoyed that scene. What I like most about this movie, with the tone and the sense of dread, is a lot of the scares building up to the scare has such a sense of dread to it. Like, you dread seeing what's going to pop out, and I love it. This movie does have a sense of campiness, but a lot of that is because Pennywise does a lot of silly stuff. Like, there was a meme of him once when the movie was released of it. And I think... And based on what I've read about behind the scenes, it seems like all of that was done on purpose. Like, they knew it was funny, but they wanted Pennywise to come across as childlike and silly because, he's a manifestation from children, so it would make sense. I think the biggest, and that tone consistency, but is the tone consistency and another thing about that, tone inconsistency, is it a big enough problem to completely ruin the movie? This movie? Absolutely not. It's noticeable in some sequences, but for the most part, the movie itself is great. A lot of the funny stuff lands, like certain characters Some of them will have some funny stuff. It is R rated, so a lot of kids do go for the full board. But in all honesty, that's kids though. Kids do that. I mean, real life kids do go full R a lot. It's true. I was a kid, and that's the way those are the kind of kids I saw. And that's another thing. Another this isn't really a huge problem for me. Well, actually, it kind of is. If I have to pick one other issue, it's the fact that they said it in the 80s while in the book it was in the 60s. This movie barely gets away with it, and in all honesty, they don't do the best of job making it feel like the 80s. They have some references there and there, but they could have plugged it in any time period, really. In all honesty, why make it in the 80s? Right now there's an oversaturation of retro stuff based in the 80s, and I love the 80s, but there's other time periods, and in all honesty, I just feel like I understand setting in the 80s, so when you do the second part, it can be based in today. But in all honesty, it just didn't. It just felt like, especially when you have a kid who plays a character in a show based in the 80s already, it just feels like overkill. And I say in the future, I think films should be careful about doing that kind of stuff, because at this point it's going to seem kind of, it's going to come across more cliched in my opinion, a bit more redundant and desperate. Um, but this film gets away with it. Um, but yeah, the movie is scary. It does have humor. It's genuine good Stephen King. Now, I think what a lot, and I will say some people either love or hate Stephen King. I love Stephen King stuff, and a lot of Stephen King stuff isn't scary per se, but it's creative. I mean, the horror movies he makes aren't like super cliche driven. They're Stephen King cliches. Like, he uses a lot of tropes that are unique to him in a lot of his stuff, but they're unique to him. Like, no one else does. If you're watching a Stephen King movie, it's a Stephen King movie. I mean, sure, a lot of the Stephen King movies may be similar to a degree, but it's Stephen King. And you can count on the horror movie, like, for example, let's take another one, like Silver Bullets or Salem's Lot. I mean, a vampire and a werewolf story. I mean, sure, it's another vampire and werewolf story, but they're Stephen King vampire and werewolf stories. That's the difference. And having his kind of uniqueness, because he is a talented writer, and he creates some unique, cool stories. A lot of them, especially in the horror genre. It is kind of ironic that his best adaptation of a movie and from a story is a non-horror story that was a short story to begin with. Shawshank Redemption is what I mentioned, and I'm getting a little off track, but basically, in terms of Stephen King movies, this is one of the better ones, in my opinion. Um, I will say, I was worried of how well Stephen King will transition to today's audiences, because the Pet Cemetery remake overall, I wasn't a super fan of. In case you haven't seen my movie theater reviews, so I was kind of, because I noticed there was a lot of drive for more Stephen King stuff because of this movie being successful, and I was curious on how well Stephen King would fit into today's nowadays standard in horror. Because Stephen King, when I think of Stephen King, I think of a lot of late '70s throughout the '80s horror movies that had awesome practical effects and had a little bit of cheese, but was genuinely entertaining. Um, but I don't know if it'll transition well nowadays. But so far this movie does a good job of it, although Pet Cemetery didn't, in my opinion. And I think that could be a good comparison of how this movie succeeds where Pet Cemetery fails. You see, this movie succeeds because it gives you a good sense of dread. Pet Cemetery remake doesn't, and that's the difference. And not that Pet Cemetery ever gave a sense of dread, but the faults of the Pet Cemetery remake are more unique to its own, and it fits more with its comparison with its original than to something like this. But yeah, I went on long enough for something like this. Overall, I think it's a great movie. Check it out. Be wary of the tone. It's not enough to ruin a movie, but it is a little jarring. Um, and that's the genuine flaw with the movie. The '80s setting, that choice of setting, that's kind of more, I would say, borderline nitpick. In all honesty, anything else really, any other flaws is kind of probably going to be more of what you see in a movie, like maybe you don't like a certain actor or a certain scene or something. Personally, I loved it. I think it was fantastic. I will say the special effects, they do use some CG. I think it's well done for the most part, and I think they did a little bit of practical effects, but I think but they did use some CG, and it was done well for the most part. Although, of course, being in my opinion, it's always amazing to see a horror movie do practical effects. I love that a lot. I kind of miss that with horror movies because CGI I don't mind usually depending on the film. This one it's fine because considering it's like kind of like they're kind of fantasy like scenarios, so I don't mind it per se, but and there's a lot of great uses of the special effects, but I think the biggest thing is they get away with the use of CGI, but I'm not going to say they get A grades for it because there are some moments that I'm like, okay, this is CGI. It's definitely terrifying CGI, but it is CGI nonetheless. So that's kind of the thing of it. Um, and that's the thing. I do think the special effects in this are pretty solid for the most part. There are maybe a few moments where it's a bit too CG for my taste, but for the most part, it's well done. Writing they just adapt from the Stephen King novel, from what I heard. They don't really make barely any changes, so kudos on that because they did a good job of that. I was worried how they would handle so many main characters. In all honesty, I probably would have personally. I wouldn't mind living with one of the characters being cut out. In all honesty, especially one of the more minor characters, but they make it work with who they have, so I'm fine with that. Overall, I love the movie. It's a great, solid movie. I recommend checking out. I'm going to be talking about Chapter 2 soon through Movie Theater Reviews, which I'll be streaming. Um, and if you want to talk to me more about this movie, share your thoughts, opinions, leave a comment, or even join our Discord, which we talk about various different things on our Discord. You'll find a link in an about page of our YouTube channel, and just join the Discord. It's easy, it's free, it's very convenient for me and Mike to talk to people, to anyone who's interested in that kind of thing. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Please subscribe and like the videos, and have a good day.